Oh my God, we're here. Aaron, hello.
Oh, hello.
Hi, SAVEPOINT stream. Hello, I'm Jason Kebler. I'm the editor-in-chief of Motherboard, and I have with me Aaron Gordon, who is a senior staff writer here at Motherboard, who has covered transportation, sports, other things. I'm trying to think what else, but most recently, the United States Postal Service. Hi, Aaron.
Hi, Jason.
Thanks for being here. Today we are playing Totally Reliable Delivery Service, which is an indie game about delivering packages, because there are unfortunately no USPS themed video games on PS4 that I know of, at least. There's one coming out, I think, next year called Lake, but it's not out yet, so we're playing this one. I also played Death Stranding for a bit, which is
Can
all
I just?
about delivering packages.
Oh, I interrupted.
No,
I interrupted you because you mentioned Lake, which is a game that I only saw the trailer for, but I'm very excited about. It seems I'm not a gamer, but it seems like very zen and wholesome. You're like, I guess the game is the basis of the game is that you're a woman who takes over the postal service delivery route from her father or uncle or something, and it's in this very gorgeous, picturesque like lake village. And from the trailer, it seems like nothing bad happens. You just go around and deliver packages, which sounds very spiritually wholesome in a time like this. I wish I could play it right now.
yeah, it looks amazing. In the meantime, we have this game, in which I seem to be a relatively inept man. It's kind of like some of those games where you have to, I control each of his limbs independently. So, like, I'm grabbing this box with one hand, and then I have to lift it up over my head, put it in this beautiful truck, and then drive it up to the ski resort gate. And it's very difficult to control, as you may or may not have noticed. But I'm going to take it up there, hopefully, while you maybe regale me about the United States Postal Service and what you've been covering the last few months, and sort of like why we're doing this project, why you've made this your beat. So you want to start with the trucks, maybe, since you started reporting on the USPS before any of this mail-in voting stuff kind of hit the fan.
Yeah, we can talk about the trucks. So I guess I started paying attention to the Postal Service actually going back to last year when I received a handwritten letter through the mail that was anonymous. It just had one sentence written on it, and it just said, file a Freedom of Information Act request for LLV truck fires. I didn't know what LLV trucks were, so I Googled it, and I saw that they were, if you think of a mail truck, if you live in the US and you think of a mail truck, you're picturing the LLV truck, that like right-hand drive, boxy looking thing. That's the iconic USPS delivery truck. And I saw when I Googled it that there have been reports of them catching on fire, but they were always like from local news stories. None of them ever really had any sense of like how many of them were catching on fire or how widespread it was. So I followed the anonymous handwritten notes instructions, and I filed a public records request. And I then forgot about it for a very long time because public records requests often take a very long time to get the documents back. But about 6 months later, like early in the summer, I did get about 4,000 pages of engineering reports back from fire engineers that the Postal Service had hired to investigate why their trucks kept catching on fire and if there was anything they could do to have them not catch on fire anymore. And what the engineers basically found was like, your trucks are catching on fire because they are incredibly old. Like, they are 30 years old. You aren't maintaining them like 30-year-old trucks have to be maintained, because that's just like wildly not cost effective. You need new trucks basically, but the post office doesn't have money for new trucks. They don't have money for lots of things that they need. And so they just keep driving these 30-year-old trucks until they burst into flames or break down so severely that they can't be driven anymore. And even when they do break down, what they will often do is like remove the chassis from one and like graft it onto another that like still has a working engine. So like there are lots of like zombie LLV trucks out there that are basically the combination of multiple past LLV trucks that were partially destroyed. They're really like on their last legs. So I wrote a story about that, and I heard back from a lot of postal workers saying like, yes, the trucks are in terrible shape. They're terrible to drive. They're like little tin death traps. But there are a lot of other problems with the Postal Service too. Even more problems than Jason is having trying to deliver this package.
It's outrageous. This game is so difficult. It's also like, how in the world am I supposed to get up this this giant thing? I'd like to just do an easier delivery if possible, but I don't know that is possible. This is I played this game yesterday for the first time, so I'm kind of feeling my way through. It's definitely like a very pretty game. Like it's got some nice quirk to it, but it is not easy. I'm gonna try this one though. So basically the object of this game is you run around to these little delivery kiosks and you pull them, and then in theory a package pops out. Let's see, I'm gonna cancel challenge. Okay. And then you have to deliver it. So it's like exactly like the real mail. Anyways,
yes.
Continue. You were telling us a grand story of how you got into this, and we'll try this barrel.
So that was the truck fire, and so this was all happening I think around like early July, and that was obviously we had just in this country experienced a couple of months of vote by mail primaries and a pandemic, and it was very clear at that point, not just to us, I think, to a lot of people, that the post office was playing an inordinately important role in the democratic process this year, and that paying very close attention to what's going on there seems like a good idea. And since we kind of had this little bit of a head start, we got to brainstorming ways to do that in a more robust way, especially since Motherboard has always been interested in election security, has always considered it an important part of its beat. I think going back, it was more about, hacking related to like the DNC and other types of political hacking during election seasons, or the security of like voting machines at polling places. But this year, obviously, the USPS is a super important cog in the voting and democratic machine. So yeah, that was kind of how we started to have the conversations about doing a larger project around the USPS, and we ended up settling on this newsletter/zine concept, which I don't know, I think it's gone pretty well so far. What do you think, Jason?
Yeah, so I'm extremely excited about the newsletter. I think it was you had this idea to do the have I died? I think I've died. You had the idea to have a newsletter about the USPS, and I think you noticed kind of early on that there are basically at least at the time, there were no national reporters who were covering this beat. So basically you have this gigantic, very important tool of democracy and communication, which is the United States Postal Service, which employs something like 700,000 employees, and you have no national reporters covering it. So, oh wow, I did one successfully. Yeah. So your idea was to... Your idea was to cover the United States Postal Service, like sort of explain its role in our country, which I think is really important and something you've done a great job so far of. So every week you've been writing, posts that sort of like contextualize the news. So, what have you written about so far? You've talked about the postal strike of the 1970s, which is hugely important and hugely important considering the context of this stream, which is national bailout and the enfranchisement or disenfranchisement of people of color and especially Black people. So, you want to talk about that episode because I think that was obviously a really important one.
Yeah, I think like also just more broadly speaking, the more I read and learned about the post office, kind of just out of my own curiosity while I was reporting on the truck fires, the more I kind of started to understand the USPS as this like bellwether institution that we can really learn a lot about America by looking at. It's always kind of embodied both our greatest aspirations about what we want our country to be and what role we want the government to play in those aspirations, and also some of the ways in which it falls short of achieving that vision. I think the post office kind of embodies both. You know, if you look back to the founding fathers creating the post office, because they saw that like this obviously the electorate then didn't mean what it means now. It was a very limited and racist vision and sexist vision of what a voter is. But even so, I think it's interesting and maybe even inspirational that they saw one of the few roles of government at the time. They really didn't think much of the role of federal government in 1792, but one of the things they did believe is that it should have a system of bringing news to people no matter where they live, and that system should be federally funded. And I think that's as like a core mission within the country, I think is something that's worth reflecting upon. And obviously that goal has changed over time in a lot of different ways. But kind of getting to the 1970 postal workers strike, I wanted to write about that as one of the first things for the newsletter because I think it says so much about a lot of the same things that our society is still dealing with today, 50 years later. The postal worker strike of 1970 was fundamentally about, it was a wildcat strike, first of all. It wasn't sanctioned by the unions because it was and is illegal for federal workers to go on strike. But more than 200,000 postal workers went on strike anyways. And they did so because they were fed up at their low wages and poor working conditions. In fact, the starting wage of postal workers in 1970 in urban areas in this country was actually higher than the starting wage for postal workers in many urban areas of the country today. So they were striking illegally over, I think what one could very reasonably say were better working conditions than a lot of postal workers put up with today. And they did so because the Nixon administration at the time was pushing through a bill that would have corporatized the post office. Because at the time, the post office was a federal department, just like the Department of Energy or the Department of Defense or whatever. It was a cabinet level position. And he was pushing through a plan to basically turn it into what it is today, a like quasi-federal corporatized structure. And the kind of quote unquote deal he struck with the unions at the time, which the workers did not believe was a legitimate deal. They thought the union leadership had kind of gone behind their backs on this, was to compensate them for this new structure with just a 5.5% wage increase, which, to put this in context, that was less than the rate of inflation in 1970. So it wasn't even really a wage increase. It like barely kept up with inflation. So the workers, I think, very justifiably saw this as an incredibly raw deal at a time when they had, when they really did have leverage because the government wanted to change the post office in this very fundamental way.
Can you shout out the fact that I just successfully delivered a package through much trial and tribulations?
Successfully delivered a package. This is actually the training regimen for USPS workers. They have to play this game until they deliver 4 packages. So you've got 2 more to go, Jason.
I see that. I've just put the wrong thing on screen. 1 second. Okay, I fixed it.
But yeah, I think the other aspect of the '70s strike that's worth or important to point out, and is thematically in keeping with the purpose of this game-a-thon, is that a lot of the strikers were, and some of the most vocal advocates for labor action from the post office workers, were they were either veterans who had recently returned from Vietnam in many cases, or had served in World War II or Korea, and many of them were also Black, African American, Latino workers, non-white workers who had traditionally been boxed out or segregated from the union structure. So it was really about marginalized and in many ways disenfranchised workers who had not had much say historically in their working conditions at the post office, kind of taking a much more active role in that issue. And they won. I mean, I think the really shocking thing about the 1970 postal workers strike, and probably one of the reasons we don't hear about it very much anymore, is because it's a story in which workers really did get what they wanted. Instead of a 5% raise, they got a 12% raise, which is a huge difference. And they also built in other worker protections, future raises, and union recognition and collective bargaining rights into the post office structure, things that weren't there beforehand. So I think it's I think it's mostly one historian who studied the postal workers strike extensively calls it like a qualified victory, basically. And the qualification comes in the aftermath of the corporatization, right? Because we've seen over the last 50 years a lot of the drawbacks of that corporatization process. Probably most noteworthy in recent years with the financial crisis that's been foisted upon them, and what the current postmaster is able to do basically unilaterally without any repercussions whatsoever. So yeah, I don't know, Jason, do you have any questions about the 1970 postal workers strike?
I don't, because you explained it very well, and it's also in the newsletter, which you can obviously go subscribe to at vice.com/themail. I've been really impressed with your ability to sort of show us a lot of the context around what's going on. So, I mean, I think I'd be curious if anyone on the stream has questions, because there's been a lot of just a lot of news happening about the mail recently. Is Trump trying to sabotage the election? Is Louis DeJoy trying to do, I don't know, is he trying to turn it into some sort of, sorry, hold on. I just had to turn off Slack because Emmanuel won't leave me alone. Sorry, Emmanuel. And it's coming through here. So I lost my train of thought, but I was saying, if anyone has any questions about what's going on right now with the post office in general, we'd be happy to answer those questions. And I think in the
no
meantime,
one has any questions about the post office. They just have questions about your unhealthy Slack usage.
Yeah, I haven't streamed a PlayStation before. I've always done it through PC, and there are many settings that need to be taken care of before you can stream successfully. And Kato, shout out to Kato for helping me get everything set up. But I was unable to figure out how to both mute Slack but stay on Slack in case anything disastrous happened on stream and I needed to be notified. So let's just hope that this keeps working. I think it's working except for the Slack notification. So we'll just keep going here. Question.
Someone in the chat mentioned that DeJoy is an efficiency ghoul, which is true, he is. But then added the caveat of, I don't think he ever worked for McKinsey, though. I do want to it's true, he did never work for McKinsey. I do actually want to, that reminded me that one of the McKinsey projects that former presidential candidate Pete Buttigieg worked on was actually for the post office. And he was part of this team that basically recommended the post office just absolutely gut their workforce. Consider reducing days of delivery around the country. Just one of those classic like consultant moments where they came in and were just like, yeah, you should pay fewer people, you should pay the people you have less money, and you should provide a worse service for the people who exist. And I think that's just like a perfect, like, I actually kind of like chuckled when I remembered this and reread the report, because it made me think about an alternate universe in which Pete Buttigieg was like somehow became the Democratic nominee. DeJoy was completely gutting the post office, and then Buttigieg would have had to like somehow defend the fact that DeJoy was just doing everything that Buttigieg had told him to. I don't know.
We stand a center left king over here,
hilarious.
So I did want to talk about the zine we just put together, which is the first time we have ever in our lives, well, not in our lives, but at Motherboard, at Waypoint, at Vice, besides the actual magazine that Vice has put out for 30 years. But the first time in Motherboard's history that we've made a zine, a printed zine, and this is part of the mail newsletter. So it's actually at the printer right this second, which is incredible. I'm really excited. This thing you see in the bottom left of your screen is the cover of that zine. I just heard earlier today that they're being printed as we speak, which is awesome. So if you do want to subscribe, you can check out vice.com/themail, and there's details there. And if anyone listening to this does subscribe, it's $8 for the issue. But we're here raising money for the national bailout. So if anyone on stream or watching this stream subscribes, I will match your donation to NBO so that your money is still going to NBO. So let me know if you subscribe because of this stream. You can just, we get a notification anytime anyone subscribes. So if anyone subscribes in the next couple hours, I will make sure that I match that donation to the NBO, and you will get a zine in your mailbox in the next week or 2 weeks, probably 2 weeks, put together with lots of love by everyone on the Motherboard and Waypoint staff. Aaron, you've looked at the zine. Do you have any thoughts on the zine?
The zine is great. I can't wait to get my hands on a copy as well. I think a lot of times when I subscribe to other like zine-like projects, they're very cool and the design is awesome, but because it's like small, I feel like I don't like actually learn very much from like what's in from like the written articles. But that is extremely not the case with this zine. Like I learned a lot about the post office from what's written from like the articles that my colleagues wrote for it, which is awesome. Like they're funny, they're smart, they're informative.
Oh my God.
They're oh my God.
Does that happen at the USPS ever?
Actually, I did just see a post on the Reddit USPS forum about someone who flipped their truck. So kind of, yeah.
Oh my God.
It wasn't into a wind turbine though, as far as I know.
Yeah. One thing I love about the zine, and also, and I won't make this like entire thing a shill for this project that we worked very, very hard on, but it is the fact that there's a lot of postcards from our readers who have sent in postcards to the Vice office from all over the country and all over the world, which is amazing. Like every Friday, like we're not in the office obviously because of coronavirus, but Aaron still lives nearby, so every Friday he is biking over to the Vice office and picking up postcards, which is just like one of the most positive things I can remember, like having worked at Vice for 7 years. It's just like connecting with readers and hearing like that they care about the work that we're doing, and also that they care about the United States Postal Service and have taken the time and effort to write us a letter and mail it to us. It's just like, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's so cool. Some people have made their own postcards, which is awesome, obviously. Other people have. I had one person who we didn't feature this week. Maybe we'll feature it next week. They took like one of those, what's the word I'm looking for? Just like one of those marketing postcards that like energy companies will sometimes send you. And he just like taped over it and wrote something on it and then sent it to us, which was awesome. I love the reuse of the postcard there. And people have really cool stamps, which I'm very jealous of. I don't have cool stamps, but some people have awesome stamps. We've gotten a few good questions, though, Jason, so I want to...
Yeah, let's take them. Let's take
answer some of them. One of them was about who actually appoints DeJoy and like what the structure there is like. The answer there is the U.S. board, the USPS Board of Governors appoints the postmaster, and that has come under a lot of scrutiny under DeJoy because basically the deal is in the final years, you know how in the final years of the Obama administration, McConnell and the Senate just blocked absolutely every appointment that the Obama administration wanted to do. They obviously that was most like prominently about the Supreme Court, but they were also doing it with like every appointment, and that included the USPS Board of Governors. So when Trump took over office, there were actually no USPS Board of Governors on the Board of Governors. Because everyone's term had expired, and then they were blocking all new ones. So when Trump came in, he could just like appoint all new Board of Governors. So now it heavily leans, that you often hear people say like, oh, it's a bipartisan Board of Governors, and like that's true in that there are governors from both parties on it, but I think it's like 4-2 Republican, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not like really bipartisan in the sense that like, there's equal votes from each side. It's still GOP dominated. And the chairman of the Board of Governors is also on the board of McConnell's biggest PAC, so like super PAC. So, and he's like a chief Republican dude, basically. Like, just imagine he's involved in like most every major Republican fundraiser effort, and that's the guy who's chairman of the Board of Governors. Now, when the existing postmaster, or the previous postmaster, I should say, announced that she was going to retire.
Oh my God! Look at what's happening to me. Sorry.
Oh, this is good. This is basically the embodiment of what the USPS is up to right now. They are hanging on to the side of the helicopter, package in one hand. And DeJoy is obviously the pilot. But yeah, anyways, they so when Megan Brennan, the previous Postmaster General, announced she was going to retire, they hired a consulting firm or a headhunting firm, like big things always do. This is very safe. We're
gonna deliver this. We're gonna deliver this. I think it needs. Oh, it
are
needs.
You?
No,
are you
I'm going the wrong way. Yes. Oh my God. It's a bear. Oh, the teddy bear has died.
Oh no.
Oh, that was bad.
Where'd the package go?
I don't know. I actually learned something. Not to interrupt you, but the USPS does a really great job of reading really bad handwriting. It uses optical character recognition, and it's kind of like pioneered that technology. And there's actually an article in the zine about this. But every once in a while, there will be a letter addressed or a package addressed to someone that just simply can't be read. And so it goes to this lost mail service in Atlanta. Do you know this place, Aaron? I did a lot of research about it the other day because I was fascinated. So you probably know more about it than I do then. I've just come across it a few times in my research, but not ever looked into it directly. Right. So it goes to this lost package place in Atlanta, Georgia, and it stays there for something 30 days where you can claim it if you were expecting it to come. And if after that period, no one has claimed it, the USPS auctions off that mail on a site called govdeals.com, which is, there's been stories written about it, but it's pretty it's a little under the radar. And if you go to govdeals.com, or it might be govdeals.net, this is a website that solely auctions off I don't like this one. I already failed this one before. It solely auctions off U.S. government equipment and state government equipment. So it's also a lot of cop seizure stuff. which is dystopian and weird. Obviously, like, I don't think the USPS is doing anything nefarious here, but it is something that that happens. But while I was on that website, I was like able to buy a go-kart if I wanted. That was just like taken via asset forfeiture from like a teen somewhere. It's just like, it's a very weird website. Any case, continue.
Did you see the Batman plane?
Oh yeah, tell me about the Batman plane. You sent it to me.
Yeah, I found my way on Gov Deals too, because they were selling like a few mail sorting machines that the USPS may or may not have just decommissioned, which is great. But yeah, then I was like, oh, I wonder what airplanes are on here, and so I searched Gov, and so I was like in the airplane section, and there was a 1970s Cessna single-engine turboprop plane with a giant Batman logo. Like, it was in the yellow and black of Batman, and on the tail was a giant Batman logo. And they were just like selling this Batman plane.
Oh my god. Yeah, to be clear, we're not like condoning govdeals.com. It's just like I mean, I think there's articles to be written about it, and surely we will dig into it at some point. It's like where your lost mail eventually goes, and you can just buy like boxes and boxes of mail. But I interrupted you talking about, I forget. Do you recall?
Yeah, I was talking about how DeJoy got appointed, and then
Yes.
Oh yeah. So like the USPS hired the headhunting firm. The headhunting firm came up with like 200 names or whatever. They narrowed it down to like 50 names. And then the chairman of the board, Mike Duncan, the Republican dude, was like, hey, I got another name for you. How about Louis DeJoy? And the headhunting firm was like, oh yeah, we looked into him. I don't know, he's on this list somewhere. And he was like, yeah, but what about Louis DeJoy? And then next thing we know, Louis DeJoy. Oh wait, I forgot one other part. Whether or not it's relevant or not, I don't know. I'll leave that up to you. But in the time from when Megan Brennan announced she was going to resign as Postmaster General to the time that Louis DeJoy became Postmaster General, the GOP major PAC for re-election magically found itself $600,000 richer thanks to Louis DeJoy. That happened somewhere in between those two things. Whether that matters or not, who knows? But yeah, so then Louis DeJoy became Postmaster General, and if you listen to Republicans tell it, they basically say it's because he's such a civic-minded individual who just wants to make the post office efficient again. And if you listen to Democrats, he's a Republican stooge out to destroy the post office ahead of one of the most consequential elections in American history, in which the post office will play a crucial role. And yeah, that's pretty much how we got to where we are.
Lovely, lovely. I want to just take a second to shout out.
The system works.
Yeah. I want to take a second to shout out the whole Waypoint team and Rob for his Crusader Kings epic campaign he just did. They will be back later today. Obviously, right after this, they're going to be live reacting to the PlayStation stream. So that's, I think, coming up at 4, I believe. If not, we'll be with you a little bit longer. But shout outs to the National Bailout, shout outs to Waypoint, shout outs to everyone on the Waypoint team, Austin, Cotto, Rob, Patrick, Gita, Natalie, I see in the comments. Hi Natalie, we miss you. And of course, everyone who's watching, thank you so much for donating. This is like my favorite event of the year, and I have very little to do with actually putting it on, but it's just such an impressive thing that these folks do. So thank you for your support. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing to the mail if you do subscribe to the mail. Reminder, anyone who subscribes to the mail, to the zine over the next hour or so, I will make sure that your donation, or that you paying for the zine. Oh my god, no parachute. This is not Warzone. No, anyone who buys the zine in the next hour or two, I will make sure that I match the donation to the NBO. So if you're giving money to us to help produce the zine, which we're not making any money on it. We're spending every penny on actually printing them and mailing them and hiring artists and stuff like that. I'll make sure that your money goes to NBO as well. Wow, there's planes in this game. I'm getting like a little better at the game, I have to say. It's like a very difficult.
You were at least in the helicopter this time.
Yeah, this is a plane. Are there any other questions in here? I don't see any active questions at the moment. I have a question, which is, why is the USPS better than UPS or Amazon, which has increasingly been delivering its own packages, or FedEx or DHL? Like, what makes it more of, I would say, like a public service, other than the fact that it's not like profit-minded?
Well, I think the main thing is the universal service delivery requirement. The USPS is legally obligated to deliver to basically everybody in the country, whereas the private carriers can pick and choose who they deliver to based on whether it's profitable or not. And naturally, that leaves large swaths of the country who don't get deliveries from private services. Like, if you live in a rural area, you might order things online and see that it's being shipped through UPS, but what UPS will do is bring that package basically to your local post office distribution facility, or perhaps post office, but probably a distribution facility, at which point the Postal Service takes over the last mile. There's, the so-called last mile, which is the least profitable part of the delivery process. The long story short is, most Americans would not get delivery service, would not get mail, would not get parcels if it wasn't for the universal delivery mandate. Like, it just wouldn't be profitable. No company would do it on their own. It just wouldn't make sense for them. It would probably revert to.
Keep going.
All right, cool. It'd probably revert to a lot like it used to be in the 19th century, when you had to go to your post office to pick up the mail. And in rural areas, that meant, basically like a half day or day's journey to go to the post. Obviously it was on horseback then. So it might be a little bit less onerous now, but still, like, that's the kind of reality I think we'd be looking at without the universal service mandate. Or maybe you'd get partial week delivery, meaning like the postman only comes, every like other day or 3 times a week or something like that. And then there's the affordability thing too. Like a lot of small businesses can't afford to ship via UPS or FedEx because the rates are a lot higher for certain types of packages. So there's also that element too.
We have a question here, which is, has the USPS ever used dirigibles? So any blimps? Are there any USPS blimps that you know of?
Blimps? Oh, that's a good question.
Oh my God.
I'm not aware of them ever using blimps. Although there were efforts by private carriers in the early air balloon days of like the early 1800s to use air balloons to deliver mail. It didn't go well, as you'd probably expect. I'm trying to remember how the anecdote went off the top of my head. Basically, like, the dude brought a sack of mail in the air balloon, took off, like, went in vaguely the correct direction, but then got caught in an updrift and ended up only traveling like 40 miles over 2 days. And then he just eventually landed and just caught the train to like get to where he needed to go to deliver the mail. And it ended up taking like 2 days slower than the train would have. So that didn't go super well.
What about?
And I don't know.
What about speedboats?
Missiles.
Missiles. Wait, first answer my
was,
speedboat question, and then let's get to the missiles. Do we have any, like,
I don't know,
cruise control?
I don't know speedboats. Speedboats don't really have like cargo areas, do they?
No, but I'm just imagining like a speed cruise control scenario in which the mail has to get there like super fast. So you have to deliver to an island or something, and you have to get it onto a speedboat. Anyways, missiles. You could probably use a missile to deliver. So what are you talking about?
The U.S. government did R&D and eventually a prototype of mail delivered by missile. I'm actually pretty fuzzy on exactly how it worked. I'm pretty sure under the Eisenhower administration this happened, and I'm not really sure like how the mail got to where it was going on the missile. It seemed like that would just be a way to get the mail to explode.
It feels very Cold War-y to me. Like that.
Well, it was during the Cold War, so yeah.
We're trying all sorts of shit down, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure. It was just like a PR stunt, though, basically. Like, they never, as far as I know, they never actually used it to deliver any real mail. It was only like Eisenhower wrote a letter to some military base, and then they launched a missile at it, and we're like, look at how awesome this is. Look at how awesome the post office is. And yeah, I don't know. I think they're onto something with that, if you ask me. That's express mail via missile.
So the question that we get a lot...
Graphic diversity here is very good.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot going on, and there's so many different types of vehicles. Also, look at this cactus that's like very low res. So a question that we get a lot, and that we've talked about a lot, just like me and you, is like, how worried should people be about the mail-in voting situation? And I think that you've been sort of like a voice of reason through all of this. So like, where do you come down? Like, if it's obviously important that everyone vote, please vote, everyone who is watching this. But it's like, if you want and need to vote by mail, like what should you do?
Well, I think the first thing to say is I don't think people should be worried about voting by mail. I think there are a lot of reasons it's good that people are being vigilant about it. But overall, I am not personally worried about the USPS's role in vote by mail. I'm worried about other aspects of voting by mail, but all of those occur either they're the rules that election boards set up over voting by mail. It's what happens within the county clerk's office as they're counting the ballots, whatever. But I think as far as the USPS's role, I feel pretty good about it, to be honest. They're good at delivering when we need them most. They have the capacity to handle this. Ballots are pretty easy to identify, and just by looking at them, and therefore I think postal workers will take good care of them. I think by and large I feel good about it. But if you are planning on voting by mail, I think the most important thing is to be very aware of what your states and if your county has different rules in your state, what the rules are in terms of when you have to request your ballot by, if you have to request one at all, how long you should send, how far in advance you should send it back to. Yeah, I just think knowing the rules is very important. And I wish it wasn't as complicated as it is. Unfortunately, mail-in ballot is pretty complicated in the U.S. I think that's a feature, not a bug to a lot of elected officials. But I think knowing the rules is very important. And also, this sounds really dumb, but knowing your own signature. Most states, they validate ballots by comparing the signature they have on file from when you registered to vote with the signature you put on the ballot or the ballot envelope. And this sounds really dumb, but most ballots, of the ballots that get disqualified, most of them are because the signature doesn't match. And it is kind of up to the discretion of the ballot of the poll worker or the ballot counter, whether the signature matches or not. There are officials on hand to dispute if the poll worker thinks oh, this signature doesn't match, and there's someone there being what are you talking about? Of course it matches. But these are just things they argue about, and it's the easiest way around this is to just actually know what your signature looks like. There was actually a study out of California recently where they found that something 1.4% of mail-in ballots don't get counted or are ruled ineligible. And the most common reason is because it's signature problems, like signature verification problems. So yeah, it's
That's
very,
a lot.
it's very silly.
1.4% is a
I
scary number.
I know, it's crazy. And like also, depending on what state you're in, they might require you to put your own postage on the return ballot. If they do require that in your state, please put the appropriate postage on the ballot. Look up, your election board should tell you exactly how much postage you need. Apparently that is also a leading reason why ballots don't get counted, because they don't actually reach their final destination because they don't have enough postage. The post office says that they'll deliver ballots even if it doesn't have enough postage, but apparently they don't sometimes, or it just like doesn't get there in time. I don't really know. But yeah, it's just like a lot of these stupid little rules. I think the other thing you can do this year is a lot of states are putting in Dropbox locations or are allowing early voting sites to collect like absentee ballots on site. I think that's a good alternative for a lot of people who don't want to like wait in line on election day to get your absentee ballot sent to you over mail, like in the weeks in advance, and then fill it out at your own leisure, and then go put it in a Dropbox or at an early voting site or something like that. I think that's what I'm probably going to do, to be honest. Not because I don't trust the post office, but just because it seems like the right combination of secure and risk. So, but I don't know. I think you should feel fine about mailing it in too. Just make sure you do it like far in advance. Make sure you don't wait until like a few days before the election to mail back your ballot. Mail it in like more than a week in advance. I really don't think there's a lot of reason not to mail it in, like reason to wait that long. I mean, I guess it's possible that there are people out there who haven't made up their minds about who they're going to vote for, or want to wait until the last minute to decide who they want to vote for. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say most people who are voting have a pretty clear idea of who they want to vote for by now. And so I don't really think there's any reason to wait in most cases.
There's a really good, well, it's not a question, but I noticed that someone in the comments, Kimberly Ann, says that they are a post worker, and you've talked to a lot of post workers. I think one thing that seems to come up time and time again is that they're an incredibly dedicated bunch. Do you want to talk about the conversations that you've had with mail carriers and other people who work for the USPS? Just in general,
the first thing I'll say is the first thing I'll say is that like 633,000 people work for the post office, so it's incredibly difficult to try and lump them together or summarize it. I think that's summarize how postal workers feel. I think that's, or what they think about certain issues. I think that's one of the things that makes the Postal Service so unique and special, is how like diverse it is, how it really is made up of people in almost every community in the country. I think we don't really have institutions like that other than the post office, and I think that's one of the things that makes it so cool. But that also makes it very hard to generalize about. But that being said, like I think I want to say most postal workers, if they aren't like, gung-ho about how special the post office is, or think of it as like this incredibly wonderful institution, at the very least, they like respect what its mission is and want to do like the bare minimum good job. Now, there are some people who don't believe that's true about the post office. I've definitely talked to some postal workers who think who like basically think all their coworkers are lazy and whatever, and just, have bad things to say about it. But I would say they're in the minority. For the most part, the workers I talk to are very dedicated workers. They wish things were different about the post office. They wish it was an easier place to work, or not like easier, I guess that's the wrong word. They wish like relationship with management was better. They wish that there wasn't so much tension between management and labor, that the work rules were not as stringent so they could go at a more reasonable pace for the amount of work that they have to do. But, you know, by and large, I think people really like the general vibe of working at the post office, especially letter carriers who get out of the office every day and like go on their routes. It gives them some semblance of autonomy and independence, and obviously develops close ties with the neighborhoods in which they work. I think conditions are a little bit different in the distribution centers, where management is kind of hovering at all times and they don't really get that kind of freedom, and their work is monitored much more closely. But yeah, I think you do see postal workers, you know, like I've talked to several postal workers who from around the country who say like, yeah, even if it doesn't have the appropriate postage, we'll still send ballots through, or we'll still send election mail through because it's important. You know, they'll go the extra mile for a customer who needs it. You know, I think like just like any other workforce, there are people who take the job very seriously, who take the mission very seriously, who are very dedicated. There are some people who are on the other end of the spectrum, and a good chunk of the workforce falls somewhere in the middle, where they kind of like respond to their management. You know, if they have good managers, they're good workers and they take the job seriously. If they have bad managers, they respond to that. And so, yeah, I think I don't know. Again, it's hard to talk about like an agency that's so big in any kind of like definitive way.
Right, of course. So we're coming up on our time here. I forgot to do this at 3:33. So shout outs to Freckled Wonder, Anonymous, Just Benj, Alex for donating 3:33. Alex donated 33.33, so thank you very much. Shout out to May Very Well Be for your donation. Timothy Agius, Brenton Pyle, Anonymous. We have a bunch of anonymouses, so thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone who's been listening. I'm going to turn this back over to Rob, Kato, Gita, Patrick, and the gang. I actually don't know who is going to be on the next stream, but they're going to be talking about the PS5 live stream, which is coming up in a couple minutes. I'm Jason Kebler, the editor-in-chief of Motherboard. I have Aaron Gordon here with me, and we'll leave in a second, but just a reminder, we're doing a weekly newsletter about the USPS called The Mail. You can check it out at vice.com/themail. We have a free weekly newsletter that will show up in your email if you subscribe there. And then for $8, you will $8 a month. So it's this month, next month, and in November, you will get 3 zines. The first one is being printed literally while we speak. So you can check that out. If anyone subscribes in the next 2 hours, I'll make sure that I donate the same amount of money to the national bailout. So that money is going not just to make the zine, but also to the cause for SAVEPOINT. And I think that's it. Thank you for watching. Keep watching SAVEPOINT 2020. Check out The Mail. Go Waypoint, go Motherboard. Aaron, you got anything?
No, I just wanted to thank everyone for listening to me ramble on about the post office. And yeah, if you subscribe to The Mail, that would be awesome. Make me happy. I work pretty hard on it. So yeah, it's good to have readers. It's good to have people reading the work we do. So thank you, everyone.
Yeah, and someone just asked, am I matching donations for people who subscribe to the annual package? Yeah, I'll do that too. So everyone, I get a notification, Aaron gets a notification anytime anyone subscribes. So I'll just go check my email and make that donation in a few minutes, in a few minutes, and then I'll check back in an hour or so too. I think I'm hanging out here until Kato is ready, but for the most part, we are done here. This game